Yes, sir. What's your favorite?
The October 12th, 2021 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Alcoff.
Here.
Mr. Ansello.
Here.
Ms. Barnhart.
Here.
Mr. Barra.
Here.
Mr. Baines.
Here.
Ms. Boyce. Mr. Brew.
Here.
President Carbone.
Here.
Mr. Colby.
Here.
Mr. Delahanty.
Here.
Mrs. DeFlorio.
Here.
Mr. Gondorfer.
Here.
Mr. Felder.
Here.
Mr. Flagler Mitchell.
Here.
Ms. Hasman. Mr. Hebert.
Here.
Mr. Keller.
Here.
Mr. Kifat-Lassi.
Here.
Ms. Lamar.
Here.
Mr. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Mafucci.
Here.
Mr. Marinetti.
Here.
Mr. Morelli.
Here.
Ms. Roman.
Here.
Ms. Smith.
Here.
Ms. Taylor.
Here.
Mr. Wilcox.
Here.
Ms. Wright.
Here.
Mr. Udelson.
Here.
Ms. Boyce.
Here.
Thank you. Please stay seated. I'd like to introduce Reverend Michael L. Sloan of the First Congregational Church in Spencerport, who has been invited by Legislator Robert Colby to lead us in a moment of prayer.
Let us bow. All loving and gracious God, you are the God of these United States, the God of New York State, and the God of Monroe County. By your divine providence, these elected officials have been put into place to serve the people of Monroe County. We pray that you would crown these officials with wisdom as they seek to solve the complex problems facing our county. We also pray that you would crown them with wisdom as they seek to prevent complex problems from creeping into our county. May your love, peace, and grace rest upon the people who reside in this county. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Please stand as Legislator Carla Boyce will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Legislator Boyce.
I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I ask you to remain standing without objection. We will take agenda item number 35 out of the regular agenda order. Agenda item number 35 is moved by Legislator Brew and seconded by Legislator Felder. Will the clerk please read the resolution expressing regret of the Monroe County Legislature on the recent passing of Michael Francesco, father of County Legislator Carla Boyce.
Expressing regret of the Monroe County Legislature on the recent passing of Michael J. Francesco, Sr., father of Monroe County Legislator Carla F. Boyce. Be it resolved that the Monroe County Legislature hereby expresses its deepest sympathy at the recent passing of Mike J. Francesco, Sr., beloved father of Monroe County Legislator Carla F. Boyce. And whereas Michael passed away on Tuesday, September 21, 2021 at the age of 97. And whereas Michael is remembered for his long and successful life, dedicated to his career and tirelessly devoted to his family, his commitment to put people first guided his long life in many ways and provided him with a sense of joy and appreciation that could be felt by those around him. Michael appreciated red wine, golf at Oak Hill Country Club, and opera music, but his greatest joy came from spending time with his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And whereas Michael is predeceased by his parents Angelo and Giovannina Francesca, brothers Patsy and Angelo, son Michael J. Francesco Jr., and his loving wife of 63 years, Rose Corky Corletta. He is survived by his sister Rose, brother Vito, daughter Carla F. Boyce, grandchildren Caroline and Alex Brokaw, Andrew and Catherine Boyce, and Gregory Francesco, and great-grandchildren Harper and Grayson Brokaw, as well as many dear friends. And whereas Michael's family, friends, community, and countless other lives that he touched throughout the years will always remember him fondly. Be it further resolved that the clerk of the legislature is hereby requested to forward a copy of this resolution to the bereaved family. This resolution was adopted with unanimously with each legislator rising in his or her place for a moment of silence.
Your copies of the day 17 September 14, 2021 journal are available through Novus Agenda. Without exception, the journal will stand approved as submitted. Legislators, the referrals submitted to the legislature for the next committee cycle are available on Novus Agenda as well as online. Before we go to the proclamations, I'd like to recognize former legislator Dick Beebe. Where are you, legislator? Thank you for being here. There's several proclamations scheduled for this evening. Go ahead, Bert.
Would Michael Pollack please come forward? Also President Dr. Joe Carbone and Legislator Justin Wilcox and Legislator Josh Baroff. Whereas it is the sense of this legislature to honor and celebrate the people and organizations that make Monroe County a better place to live. And whereas, attended to such concern, these legislators are justly proud to honor Michael E. Pollack, retired EMT and lieutenant, for his nearly 35 years of service to both the Brighton community and Monroe County. And whereas Michael has been a part of the Brighton EMS community since 1987 and also worked for 28 years as a New York State DOCS sergeant, deputy fire chief, 2 years with the County Sheriff's Department, and 6 years with the Brighton Police. And whereas he volunteered for 25 years with the Monroe County Office of Emergency Preparedness, Radiological Chemical Response Team in a supervisory role. And whereas Michael has saved many lives over the years, even while off duty, including rescuing an electrocuted senior citizen and an infant who was in respiratory arrest. And whereas he helped to ensure that EMTs statewide are considered essential workers during the pandemic and beyond. And whereas Michael continues to aid his community by advocating on behalf of EMS workers, serving on the board of directors of Brighton Volunteer Ambulance, the Society for Total Emergency Programs, or STEP Council of the Genesee Region, the New York State EMS Memorial Committee, and as a senior advisor to Ezra's Nashim, the only all-women Orthodox Jewish EMS service in the United States. and he secured over $500,000 in funding to expand the Brighton Volunteer Ambulance Base. And whereas Michael lives in the town of Brighton with his wife, Mary Lou, and his father and daughter, Emma, living in Washington, D.C. And now, therefore, let it be known that we, Dr. Joe Carbone, President, Joseph Wilcox, Legislator, District 14, and Joshua Baroth, District 24, do hereby honor Michael E. Pollack on this 12th day of October 2021.
I'm humbled by this honor. I appreciate the recognition. I do what I love, and I love community service. I love public service. It's what I've done my entire adult life, and even when I was younger. I'm going to ask that in the future, the legislature keep in mind, especially for EMS, funding is an issue. And what you can do as a group is get in contact with your state representatives, and most importantly, our people in Congress and the Senate, to help raise Medicare and Medicaid reimbursements so EMTs nationwide can afford to have a living wage and not have to work two jobs. Right now, I'm also involved with the National Association of EMTs, and they recently did a survey, and it shows that the turnover for EMTs due to the pandemic, due to stress on families, and all these factors, as well as salaries, play into it. But they need to know the public is behind them, and they need to know that the bodies of government are behind them, supporting them, and will work to help them. Thank you.
Would Devin Reynolds Sr. please come forward? Also, President Dr. Joe Carbone and Legislator Yaversha Roman. Whereas it is the sense of this legislature to honor and celebrate the people and organizations that make Monroe County a better place to live. And whereas, attended to such concern, these legislators are justly proud to honor Devin Reynolds Sr. of Brothers and Sisters Unisex Salon, a business serving Monroe County and the greater Rochester community. And whereas Brothers and Sisters Unisex Salon is owned by Devin and is located on Dewey Avenue, where Devin has worked as a 10-year-old sweeping floors. And whereas Devin learned early as a youth from his grandmother the responsibility to feed God's children and to serve the community. And whereas Brothers and Sisters Unisex Salon is more than a hair salon, but a community gathering place where Devin has used his business to serve as a food pantry, distributing free food to those in need. And whereas Devin also held backpack and school supply drives since 2015, partnering with a number of Rochester schools, including Virgil Grissom School Number 7 and Abraham Lincoln School Number 22, once again hosting 2 weekend drives and giveaways for the 2021-2022 school year. And whereas Devin has also partnered with other community activists and organizations to host health and wellness sessions that have included blood pressure and other health screenings and informational roundtables. And whereas Devin received an ESL Jefferson Award, which honors those who give tirelessly of their time to enrich and improve the community in 2018. And whereas Devin has devoted himself to serving the community and his family. And now, therefore, let it be known that we, Dr. Joe Carbone, President, and Yaversha Roman, Legislator District 26, do hereby honor Devin Reynolds Sr. for his commitment to Greater Rochester on this 12th day of October, 2021. Congratulations.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Versha, for this recommendation. Okay, so when doing this work, you really don't expect acknowledgement, but it's always beautiful and humbling to receive adulation for this. But with everything that's going on in Monroe County, I will be remiss not to walk away and task the county legislators with a few action items. All right, so the first one would be to pull some resources to help the pistol permit licensing. They're backed up 9 to 18 months, which is outrageous for us to walk around and be legal. Second one would be to diversify the hiring in the court office for the sheriffs. It's very intimidating. It would be nice to see more faces inside of the court office, as well as promote and fund programs to increase employment opportunities for the inner city communities. For a real collective effort to push the NAILA law that regulates the interactions between officers and children, as well as the Daniel Prue law, which bans lethal force for any mental health crises. And last but not least, a commitment to continue the efforts to build a successful, transparent, working relationship with the grassroots organizations in Rochester. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Would the family and friends of Jeremy Chung please come forward? Also, President Dr. Joe Carbone and Legislator Sabrina Lamar. Whereas, it is the sense of this legislature to honor individuals and organizations who make an impact on our community. And whereas, attended to such concern and in full accord with longstanding tradition, these legislators are justly proud to honor the memory of Jeremy Chung. And whereas, Jeremy was driven in life to lift up others and provide a safe place for them to live, especially when it came to gun violence through his creation of the group Gays Against Guns in the wake of the Pulse nightclub shooting. He followed this with gun violence prevention advocacy in the Women's March, joining forces with the local chapter of Moms Demand Action, planning events for Rise Up Rochester, and becoming a leader with the Rock Against Gun Violence Coalition. And whereas Jeremy's creation of Resist Chester provided a powerful combination of art, craftivist resistance, and voter engagement to get people involved in their community. And whereas Jeremy was a fearless and hands-on foot soldier in the drive to create civic engagement through his advocacy of voter registration and collaboration with students, and was passionate about issues such as making sure women's and LGBTQ+ rights were protected, promoting the teaching of gay history, and helping to create an AIDS awareness exhibit. Now, therefore, let it be known that we, Sabrina Lamar, Legislator District 27, and Dr. Joe Carbone, President, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby honor and recognize the memory of Jeremy Chung on this 12th day of October, 2021, for his selflessness, dedication to the community, and benevolence to those in need.
Thank you. On behalf of the legislative body, I just want to say thank you to Jeremy's family and friends for coming today. Jeremy was very instrumental in some of the work that we're doing in the community surrounding gun violence. I met Jeremy maybe about 5 years ago, and his smile would light up the entire room. He was definitely a jewel and will truly be missed. Thank you.
We will not recess for the purpose of holding. I now declare open the public hearing on enacting a local law entitled to establish the Food Delivery Service Act.
There are no registered speakers for this public hearing.
There being none, I declare this public hearing closed. We will now reconvene the October 12th, 2021 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature. There are no formal committee reports scheduled for this evening. We will now hold the public forum. Mr. Clerk.
I will call 3 speakers up at a time. When your name is called, please come forward to the front of the chambers. You will have 2 minutes in which to address the legislature. Please conclude when the timer sounds. Thank you. Our first 3 speakers are Latanya Wilcox, Brenda, no last name on the sheet, Brenda, and then Iris Bannister.
Good evening, everyone, to our fellow legislators, those who are in charge here, to my colleagues, my fellow examiners, my fellow brothers and sisters of the Federation of Social Workers. I stand before you as an examiner. I have been an examiner with Monroe County since 2005. We provide critical services to most vulnerable and needy children and our families in the community. We process the applications, we conduct the interviews for those who suffer from food insecurities, who need Medicaid, Medicare, and provide file petitions to help children offset the cost of state so that they can have child support. That's what we do as an examiner. We have been impacted by the low retention rate of workers staying with the county and bearing the brunt of the workload and getting reprimanded for productivity because of the demand to get the work done due to delays and services being compromised. It should be embarrassing for the county that some of my colleagues' pay is so low that they are eligible for the services that we provide to the community. I have no children. I'm not married. I'm 52 years old. I have type 2 diabetes, and I gross $1,676.10 biweekly. I take home $875.84. That's over half my paycheck that I spend out because I have these particular things. In 2017 and 2018, I had to take care of a dying father. With that, I had to take out 401ks, I had to take out my retirement loan, and I'm paying this back in my paycheck. We have worked on some of your campaigns. We have been there for you. Be there for us. We need the support. And I'm just a single person. Could you imagine what the examiner who has one child and has to do the things that I do? If I could show you my check, you would cry, because I have to take care of short-term disability because I can't get disability. I have to take care of my own medical at high end because the value plan does not work for my particular condition. So we're just asking for the help. We've been there for you. You're gonna have to be there for us. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brenda, and I'm here to tell you that I love the Constitution of the United States. I'm not alone. Countless soldiers have paid the ultimate price to win freedoms we've been granted. We are forever grateful. Our beloved Constitution recognizes that we have inalienable rights which come from God and God alone. Today, our Constitution is getting trampled by those who have no regard for our freedoms, our rights, and the enormous sacrifices made. Perhaps by some of you right in this room. Are we going to stand silent while this onslaught continues? All Americans should know their rights and exercise them. Trampling the Constitution is unacceptable and evil. Silent? No way. For silence in the face of evil is evil itself. The First Amendment says in part, Congress shall make no law respecting an established religion or prohibiting free exercise thereof, abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. I'll list a few constitutional violations affecting Monroe County. Churches and small businesses were closed and discriminated against during the shutdown, while abortion clinics, liquor stores, and Walmarts remained open. We've had hospitals restrict medical freedoms of their employees by giving them an ultimatum to get a medical procedure done or be fired. It still remains to be seen what will happen with the governor's grossly unconstitutional executive order attempting to remove religious exemptions. This violates not only the Constitution, but Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and New York State's human rights law. And the last and perhaps most ridiculous, pardon me, the Department of Justice is sicking the FBI on parents who attend Board of Education meetings to question or disagree about their children being masked and what they are being taught in schools. Are we fed up yet? I know a boatload of people who are. Marbury versus Madison states, all laws which are repugnant to the Constitution are null and void. And these are not even laws. I believe America in general needs to relearn the Constitution or we risk losing it. I'll leave you with a copy of the resolution that Cattaraugus County has adopted. In summation, they have determined to stand as a constitutional county to protect the rights provided to their citizens under the U.S. Constitution and its amendments. Monroe County, we need to do this resolution. We must. Will you stand for the rights of your constituents? We will be watching and voting accordingly. I'll leave you with this profound statement from Ben Franklin. A nation of well-informed men who have been taught to know and prize the rights that God has given them cannot be enslaved. It is in the region of ignorance that tyranny begins. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Iris Bannister, a almost 50-year resident of Rochester and very active in our community. The consequences to individuals that have been sexually harassed can be many and very serious. But before I go any further, we're still waiting for censure. We're still waiting for you to do something that is right and responsible. And we're very disappointed that you have not done anything. It's just like business as usual. In some situations, a harassed woman like Lakea, her case, she risked not having a job because she was looked upon as either not being a team player or a troublemaker because she had been sexually assaulted and decided to tell. According to data compiled by equal rights advocates, 90 to 95% of sexually harassed women suffer from some disability, and it's debilitating, such as stress, including anxiety, depression, headaches, sleep disorder, weight loss or weight gain, nausea, low self-esteem, sexual dysfunction, and becoming reclusive or self-isolating. So now committee, and there is a committee. Of course, we'd like to know a little bit more about this committee. You seem to be doing things a little quiet, and we'd like for you to be more verbal. Team Lakea shared with you some potential things that can happen to women that have been sexually assaulted, sexually harassed. And Lakea has faced some of these very same things that I have spoken about. Now, we employ you to get busy, and to get busy now, and to get busy loud enough that this community can have trust that you're doing something, that you are addressing the issue. We want to know it, we want to be a part of it, and we want to see it happen. We're asking you something very simple. Develop a strong anti-sexual harassment policy that includes strong, unwavering consequences for those who violate, because violators beget violators, as Lakea has experienced again the same situation. We are outraged, but we want to work with you. We want to be supportive. We want to be good citizens, and we're asking you to help us do that. But if you don't help us do that, we're depending on you. Thank you very much.
Our next three speakers are Connie Wall, Kylie Rufo, Shirley Thompson.
Hello. I have been a nurse at St. Mary's for 20 years and a public health nurse in New Orleans. And I don't want you to even think of some of the things I've seen, people who've been brought in on a cold night with damaged limbs, which of course will be amputated. And that's why I love working at the House of Mercy and the Reach Shelter. But something very sad happened. Last year, they didn't open the Reach Shelter. It was a new thing. Sister Grace, Reverend Peter Peters, Deacon Dan started it when the homeless were asked to leave the garage 6 years ago. And like the House of Mercy, they have social workers, and they do so much good. And they put these poor people that have been in jail or on drugs back living. I have a friend. Every week we go out. I met him at the Reach Shelter, Eddie Johnson, and he's beaten all of these problems just because of these remarkable shelters. And it's not just a hotel. They need help. They need the social workers. And so I'm here to ask. I heard the County of Monroe would not give any money to the Reach Shelter this year, which has struggled with remarkable people and done so much because something about the air filtration. Well, Sister Grace and her organization, they are very cognizant. There's been no COVID. You can't get there if you don't have your shot. And if you're not, there's anything the matter, they've kept it down. And the REACH shelter could do the same if the county would recognize this, because all of us have got to work together and be aware. And you would hate it if one of your family members was left on a beach and would be without their limbs. So think, and the mental ill problem here is not good. The long facility that was opened for years on Elmwood closed 4 or 5 years ago, and they sent them to Syracuse and Buffalo. Where's the help in Rochester? The county's got, these are vital issues. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kylie Chufo, and I'm a caseworker with Child Protective Services, Monroe County Department of Human Services. Lured by the promise of great benefits and work experience, I started with the agency fresh out of college. At 23, only to discover that those benefits were not all that competitive and barely enough to retain current employees, let alone entice new ones. As for the salary, well, for most of my career, I've needed a second job just to make ends meet, and it was only this past year that I was finally able to support myself solely from this job, and unfortunately, I am not alone. So many of my colleagues are in the same position as I am, and when we as employees are reliant on the same welfare programs that we provide to those below the poverty line to support ourselves and our families, there's a glaring problem. This problem ultimately affects not just us, but you and our community as a whole. The CPS workers in Monroe County have a higher than average recommended caseload because the agency can't maintain employees. We are paid one of the lowest salaries for CPS workers in the state and sent alone into some of the most dangerous neighborhoods in our communities, often into drug and gang houses, armed with nothing but our badge and a smile, all while being expected to assist those families manage crisis and meet their needs when we can't even meet our own. To quote Richard Branson, if you take care of the employees, they'll take care of the business, and the rest speaks for itself. The government is like a business, and it must be run efficiently. What we do each day impacts a member of the community on various levels, whether directly or by a chain reaction. From providing financial assistance or help with food to ensuring the safety and well-being of our children and families, the effects ripple through Monroe County. Monroe County has some of the most impoverished areas by comparison in the country, high crime rate, and some of the highest rates of child neglect in the state. These issues don't happen in a vacuum, and they don't happen overnight. They happen when we devote the time and resources to addressing some of our biggest areas of concern and instead hope for some miracle that they get fixed. The correlation between those on welfare and those who are also involved with CPS is pretty significant. When you add in criminal activity on top of that, the interconnection becomes alarming. When we don't have enough time or manpower to address the roots of these issues and instead just treat the symptoms of these problems, nothing changes, and that in and of itself is a problem. You can't expect employees who are struggling to support their own families to effectively address those issues either. In all honesty, I love and value what I do, and you should too. An investment in the Department of Human Services and FSW is an investment in the community. Thank you.
Good evening, President Carbone and legislators. My name is Shirley Thompson. I'm a member of Team Lakea. For those in the room who aren't aware, Lakea Sinclair was sexually harassed by a county legislator who has decided not to remain in the room this evening. And Team Lakea was formed to ask county legislators to do their job. The minister earlier this evening asked for blessings and guidance to you to serve the people of Monroe County. And that's what Team Lakea has been coming to ask you month after month, to hold this county legislator accountable by censuring him which we know is not within your purview, but we believe that it can be done. And by not allowing him to serve on committees and represent the people of Monroe County, certainly while he hasn't even taken responsibility for sexually harassing Ms. Sinclair. So tonight, I know that the ethics committee is supposed to be forming, or a committee is supposed to be forming to reform the ethics committee guidelines and parameters. I'd like to know the status of that committee. We sent a letter, Team Lakeya sent a letter to the county legislators on September 9th, and we have yet to get a response about whether or not the committee has been established or what the status of the work is. We would appreciate that. My contact information and the contact information of Reverend Bannister, who spoke before me, was included in that letter. We have yet to hear anything from any of the legislators. We would like to know the status of whether or not this legislator who sexually harassed Lakeya Sinclair is going to be censured. At a minimum, I would hope that the chair of the Agenda Charter Committee, Legislator Taylor, would contact either Reverend Bannister or myself with information about where this process is going. And finally, I would just say that what I said at the last meeting, we hope that you would not wait for this issue to touch your family, your son, your daughter, your sister, your wife. We would hope that you would not wait to be personally affected by sexual harassment before deciding that there are steps you can take to ensure that it doesn't happen again and to protect the citizens of Monroe County. Thank you.
Our next three speakers are Leanna Myers, Sister Grace Miller, and Miss Morales.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Mandating the COVID-19 vaccine is an egregious overreach of our federal government, local governments, medical practitioners, and facilities. Our doctors are to advise us on treatments, not force us against our own will. We Americans are being forced up to give up one of our most basic rights as Americans, freedom of choice. The CDC is a patent corporation making over $4.6 billion on their vaccines yearly. They're not worried about our health. They're concerned about making money at any cost. 40 to 60% of people who are hospitalized today already received the COVID-19 vaccine. Now our government and medical doctors want to mandate all of us to take this vaccine along with our children. Dr. Brian Ardis reports that at the end of 2020, listed in the CMS.gov database, there were 555,000 deaths in America. 720,000 COVID deaths were caused by treatment protocols ordered by Dr. Anthony Fauci using remdesivir. 2.2 million people died worldwide. 26% of the 550,000 Americans died were in New York State alone. The CMS government database reports that in New York, 7,000 deaths occurred 28 days after these patients received the COVID vaccine. None of these patients had COVID-19 during the pandemic. Statistics from the Texas CMS database shows that patients on Medicare, 75 and older, with no prior medical issue, on their charts reported 6,558 deaths. 8,324 Medicare patients who never had COVID-19 from January 1st, 2020 till the time they took the shot ended up COVID positive. 501 cardiac arrests, 2,700 myocardial infarctions, 1,703 paralysis, 2,416 strokes, yet Governor Hochul wants to start vaccinating our children. For the last 20 years, the NIH website has shown ivermectin to be a proven drug to treat COVID, and it is approved by the FDA. Remdesivir is known to cause renal, kidney, and liver failure. This is posted on the NIH website with the Ebola trials that took place in Africa. 4 months later, after this study in Africa, Dr. Fauci ordered remdesivir treatment protocols in hospitals and ICU units, still taking place today. There is no deadly COVID virus. There is a deadly drug killing Americans by the thousands called remdesivir. How much more death and destruction must take place before this is stopped? If our medical doctors are ignoring these reports just for COVID-19, they should not be allowed to order immunizations on anyone at any time. Now is the time for each and every one of you to stand up for your constituents of this county, this state, the entire United States for America. Words can deceive people, but numbers can't. Do the right thing. Stop the mass genocide. Thank you.
We have serious issues of homelessness and a lack of housing in our city and our county. And when we call upon county officials to help, you know what response we get? We have beds for every homeless person in the city. This is not true. It's far from the truth. And then our conversation ends right there. We can get no further. At the House of Mercy, we see an increase of homeless people, an increase. Many of them are afraid. They worry about where they will sleep at night. They have mental issues and are about ready to give up because they do not receive the help that they need. Then when we take them in, we are criticized because we have too many in our homeless shelter. It's not fair. Even though this is your responsibility, we will not leave any person homeless. We will accept them regardless of the cost to us and the criticisms that we constantly get. The number of homeless persons is increasing. There's a terrible lack of affordable housing. Although what we need is not affordable housing, because affordable housing is not affordable to our poor. What we need is low-income housing. And it's time for the county to take this issue seriously. There are empty hotels that could be used for the homeless. The response I get from the county is, there is a hotel for the homeless, one hotel for the number of homeless that we have. What we're saying is one hotel is not enough. Plus, there's a problem of food. How are they being fed when they are in these hotels? We contacted one hotel for help, but the owner told me he was willing to help. But once he contacted the county, his hands were tied. There's a Cadillac Hotel standing empty for years when it could be renovated and returned to the homeless. Now we see Crystal Construction taking over the city to build what they say is affordable housing, but it's not affordable. You have meeting after meeting. How often does the issue of housing for our poor ever get discussed? What plans do you have to provide housing for every single homeless person in this county? This is your problem, and you must take it seriously. The excuse, we have enough beds for all of our homeless in the county, it doesn't hold.
Good evening. Oh, that was so nice. Out of the 21 pictures that I counted hanging on the outside the wall here when I came up, I only seen, I think it was one. No, I don't think, I know it was one. There should have been more of Mr. Ronnie Thomas, but there was only one. Out of 200 to 500 Afghan people who live in homeless conditions under bridges to come to the land of a home of the free and the brave, I thought maybe they could be housed with some of our homeless people at the Cadillac Hotel. There's people in this district who are beautifying the land, who rent places here for income, but the community's being trashed. People that are here should be accountable for their property that they're keeping around, just as if you're worried about the homeless taking care of the Cadillac, teach people what they should do. Where you live, clean up from around where you live. Rochester's being trashed to me, but you say there's no room in the end for the homeless in Monroe County, but you build a jail over there. You know, right there, there's room for that jail. So if you can't shelter us and help us, why is the jail there to help whoever come through that door, stinking, dirty, homeless, whatever? If they come through there, you got room to take care of them, but you'd have no room for us. And so I want to know also a part of what Sister Grace is saying. How y'all sit there and we talk for 2 minutes and y'all have no response after year? Y'all need to give up them seats if you can't communicate with people, because it ain't doing you no good.
Our next three speakers are Sancha Kukendall, Eugene Nolan, and Dawn Sweats.
Good evening. I'm here with the Federation of Social Workers. I'm an examiner at Monroe County Department of Human Services, and I'm here to talk about everyone's favorite topic, inflation. Inflation is projected to run at about 5% this year. What does that have to do with the social workers? Well, our raise is scheduled to be 2% per our contract. So we are expecting a 2% raise to offset 5% inflation. This alone would be a problem if this was the first time our wages have been swamped by inflation. But this loss in purchasing power will come on the heels of years of wage increases that were either non-existent or well below the inflation rate. Recently, I went into the union hall and pulled up some of our old contracts. I went back to 1973. In 1973, I was a year old. My mother, then a grown woman, lived in a world where social work was a woman's job and women's work was routinely underpaid. And yet, social workers in 1973 earned wages that, when adjusted for inflation, would feel like a generous raise now. A new examiner in 1973 was hired at what would be, adjusted for inflation, $45,000 now. That's not great, right? $45,000, not huge. And yet, guess what we're hiring new examiners for now? $33,000, right? The same holds true for CPS workers, supervising examiners, and so on throughout the agency. I've run the figures. I've used the Department of Labor's inflation rate. This is not something that I shopped around for. This is straight off of the site that adjust wages for inflation. I would be happy to share them. I would be happy to send them to you. And let me repeat, we are scheduled to receive a 2% raise this year to compensate for what is predicted to be 5% inflation. So my question to you is, how much longer can this go on? How much longer can our wages be eroded year after year in terms of purchasing power before our wages become more like a stipend or a teenager's part-time job than remuneration for professionals that we are expected to be? Thank you.
Hello. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. I have worked for Monroe County in Child Protective Services since 2008. Currently, I am a supervisor on an investigation team. This is the first time I have spoken to the county legislature. I have chosen to do so this evening due to what is quickly becoming a crisis in Child Protective Services. We do not have nearly enough workers to manage the current number of families that are involved with our agency. Currently, we have over 40 casework vacancies, which is roughly the equivalent of 8 teams. We do not have anywhere near the number of people on the caseworker list who are willing to fill these openings. There are likely several reasons for this. At the top of that list is that Monroe County is no longer competitive. I have researched multiple surrounding counties and discovered we make on average $8,000 less per year than nearly every other county for the same jobs. Additionally, it takes our workers roughly 8 years longer to make it to the top of the pay scale than every county around us. Meaning when a caseworker gets hired at $39,000, it takes them 12 years to make $10,000 additional dollars. We are losing workers daily, and many are leaving for other counties and non-for-profit organizations that pay the same or more for positions that are safer and far less stressful. This is resulting in unprecedented numbers of inexperienced staff. I respectfully ask that you look at the handout I provided you to provide some specific numbers as well as some context regarding pay for our county. The decisions that are made as far as funding and benefits for services in our community, including the amount we are willing to pay frontline workers, shows what you value. The true measure of what a community values and what it chooses to invest their money and resources in. I'm here today to ask you to invest in the safety of our community's children by investing in those who do this crucial and dangerous job alongside me every day to keep what is amongst our most vulnerable population safe. If we do not make a significant change to the compensation for CPS workers to attract and retain qualified workers, we will absolutely be faced with tragedy. It is up to the people who can make those changes to do so. I implore you to think of the children in your lives, the ones that you love, and ask yourselves, would it be acceptable to you if they were ever in a position where they were being harmed in any way, but there was no one qualified and available to help them? I certainly hope not. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. Thanks for giving me a couple of minutes to speak. For those who remember me, my name is Gene Nolan. I'm the county chairman of SCOPE, which is the Second Amendment group. I was here last month talking about the same thing, protective carry of weapons in our Monroe County parks. I laid out some facts as far as crimes that were committed in these parks. We talked a little bit about the rapes, the beatings, the carjackings, and the burglaries. In 1 month, since I was here last, we've had 7 burglaries, robberies, and unfortunately, 1 murder. Now, allowing law-abiding, permit-carrying citizens to carry their weapons in a park, would that have prevented these crimes? I'd like to think so. One thing I know for sure, if we do nothing and abide by the law that's inept, that's on the books now, crime will do nothing except escalate. We need to protect the innocent, law-abiding citizens of Monroe County. After all, That's why these parks were created and supported by your tax dollars. All I'm asking is consider these facts. You have a chance now to help prevent crime. Do it. Thank you.
Can I just say one thing? The one thing that I've noticed is a major theme throughout tonight is everyone's looking for freedom. We don't want our government to oppress us anymore. This law oppresses us from being able to defend our families. Other people are looking to stop the oppression of county legislators from treating them poorly. That's all we're asking. We're asking for you guys to stop treating us like we're children and treat us like adults. We can defend ourselves. We can protect ourselves. We can make our own decisions. Thank you.
Our next three speakers are Curtis Pound, Julie Donahue, and Jackie Holtzman.
Hi, good evening. I want to thank you for providing me an opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'm an employee at Monroe County Department of Human Services as a child protective caseworker. I started in this position in May 11th, 2020. I'm here tonight to speak to you about the issues we face in our employment at DHS. I thought I would start with sharing some background about me, as I consider myself a success story of someone who at one time had social services in my life. When I was about 3 years old, my father left my mom, my newborn sister, and me. He left us without a place to live and with no money. My mother turned to the county for assistance with food and shelter. We moved into subsidized housing at Lexington Court Apartments. This is where we resided until I was 15 years old. My mom eventually secured an examiner position with DHS, and we made a better life for ourselves because of the temporary assistance we needed at our time of need. I went on to graduate with a bachelor's degree in political science from St. John Fisher, and my sister graduated from Lemoyne College with a master's in teaching. We are successful customers of DHS. That brings me to my current position as a caseworker for CPS. In the last 17 months, I have seen many people leave our agency. We have many unfilled positions. This has led to higher caseloads, low employee morale, apathy, and low retention rates. Everyone always advocates for higher pay as a way to combat these issues. I have always said that even if you double our salary, it will not fix many of these items plaguing our agency. But then I decided to listen to the other things people were complaining about. Here are some examples. I cannot afford daycare on what I make. I cannot pay my student loans on what I make. I might not be able to make my rent payment this month because of how little I make here. I have to go home and decide what needs to get paid and what I can pay late because my paycheck is so little. If something happens to me, I can't afford to pay my bills because I have no money in savings. I do not have life insurance because I would not be able to make my car payment each month. So then I decided to look at some salary to expenses comparisons. I looked at the posted pay for the examiner and caseworker positions on the Monroe County website. Here is something to consider. Examiner's starting salary is $32,859 per year. The caseworker's salary is $39,739 per year. I then calculated my actual basic monthly expenses. My mortgage is $765 a month. Property and school taxes, $600 a month. Car payment, $275. Fuel, $100. Gas and electric, $200. Car insurance, $60. Food, $1,200 a month. Homeowners insurance, $50. Prescriptions, $100 a month. Life insurance, $22.25. My total monthly expenses for those basic necessities is $3,372.25. That's a total annual cost of $40,467. And I have no daycare expense, no student loans, many of those things that my other coworkers complain that they have. So if you take an examiner's position at that base pay, they are left with $7,608 minus in the hole, not able to meet their basic needs. A caseworker would be minus $728, not able to meet their basic needs. Now let's compare the starting salary of a Monroe County legislature yourselves. Your starting pay is $79,500 a year. Total annual cost of $40,467 leaves you with $39,033, which exceeds the basic expenses.
Okay, please summarize.
Okay, as you can see from this real life example, our examiners and caseworkers are not even able to afford basic necessities. This has a real impact on our agency's ability to attract new employees and retain current ones. I do stand by my original statement that even doubling our salary won't solve every problem, but it's a piece of the puzzle that needs to start to make positive changes. How can we require a caseworker to have a 4-year degree and not even offer adequate competitive wages? Let me take you back to 1973 in the story of my mother. There she was on the doorstep to the temporary assistant's office with a newborn and a toddler. She needed a lifeline. She needed help to ensure her children would not be without food, shelter, and basic necessities. A worker offered her that assistance right there that day. And that started her journey to getting herself off the street, out of an abusive marriage, and her eventual employment as an examiner for Monroe County, which she spent sleepless nights worrying about her clients because she had once been on that front doorstep herself. After retiring from the agency, her son, that's me, would now start a career following in her footsteps. Imagine had that day occurred today, where workers are not able to assist immediately because of high caseloads, poor attitudes, numerous vacancies, inadequate wages, etc. Our work matters to the members of our community. Our community deserves the best from their tax dollars. Our children deserve to be kept safe. Our workers need to be fairly compensated for their hard work. One day, it might be one of those children standing here before you telling their success story. Thank you.
Hi. The Jefferson County Board of Legislators passed a resolution decrying COVID-19 vaccine mandates in a 13-1 vote. The St. Lawrence County Board of Legislators also passed a similar resolution in a 12-3 vote. I would like to request that the Monroe County Board of Legislators also pass a resolution decrying the COVID-19 vaccine mandates. There are many reasons that the COVID-19 vaccine should not be mandated. I'm going to address some of them. It violates the New York State Constitution. The New York State Constitution begins with "We, the people of the state of New York, gratefully to our Almighty God for our freedom. Our freedom is given to us by God, not government." Section 1 states, "No member of this state shall be disenfranchised or deprived of any of their rights or privileges secured to any citizen." Section 10, Article 1 further disallows for civil rights violations. Each one of you has signed the oath of office that states, "I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the New York State." The COVID-19 vaccine is still under emergency use authorization. Pfizer-BioNTech simply had the EUA renewed. I will be providing you with documentation of that. Informed consent about the ingredients and/or possible side effects of the vaccine have not been provided to the people. That is required by Public Health Law 2805-D. The majority of the county has avoided being divided by our political party, the color of our skin, or a vaccination choice, even though there is a blatant push for division. This vaccine mandate only serves to segregate their people. Not being allowed to work, shop, etc., because you are unvaccinated is no different than not being allowed to shop, work, etc., because of the color of your skin. Find another place to work or another place to shop is not acceptable. We shall not be segregated. COVID-19 is a virus that, for the vast majority of the public, has a 99.5% plus survival rate without treatment. The fatality rate of the virus for the most vulnerable population is less than 1%. The vaccine does not give you immunity, does not stop transmission, and does not prevent hospitalization. These facts seem to be removed by those in government. With that being said, I would also like to request that the board look into the health department and their overreach of power. The department has stated that mask breaks and social distancing are no longer allowed in schools. I have not seen any new guidance to that effect. Why was that allowed last year but not this year? Why are they sending letters to private schools stating that they will be criminally charged and fined $1,000 per person without a mask? There is no proof that masks prevent transmission. In fact, the box says it does not. Masks only further serve to weaken our immune system in a time when we need a robust immune system. I will be providing you all with documentation of everything that I said electronically. Thank you.
Thank you for having me tonight. For the past 19 months, our rights and freedoms have been stripped away and continue to be stripped away, violating the Constitution at every turn. Hundreds of healthcare workers risked losing their jobs and ultimately did lose their jobs because of an unlawful and unconstitutional mandate and coercion placed on them by the governor. A mandate is not a law. We are no longer in a state of emergency. That ended this past spring. The governor is not a lawmaker of the state or county. The legislators of the state and counties are. So I ask you, where were any of you to stop this? On September 29th, Nick Langworthy held a press conference in front of Strong Memorial Hospital. He told the health care workers, I want you all to know the Republican Party stands with you and what's been done to you is dead wrong. If what he said was true, that the Republican Party stands with them, then where were the 15 of you? I was there supporting the workers, but I did not see you. There was an embarrassment to the Republicans in this county, as well as a kick in the stomach to our great healthcare workers who sacrificed their lives on the front lines. We have been told day in and day out that coronavirus is surging and the hospitals are filling up. If that were true, then I hardly doubt the hospitals would have fired all those workers. That was an idiotic move and one that makes no logical or business sense at all unless it was an intentional move on the government's part to collapse our healthcare system. This whole supposed pandemic could come to a quick halt if New York State allowed early treatment and prophylactics like ivermectin and monoclonal antibody treatments. New York State is actively killing people, and all of you are allowing this to happen. This can be considered a crime against humanity. Langworthy also said, as he referred to leaders recognize when they make a mistake. They have courage, they have conviction, and they understand when you're going down the wrong path. Maybe you stop, reconsider, go fix it. The question is, does Kathy Hochul have the courage and wisdom to do so? I guess we'll find out, he says. Now I'm asking the 29 of you, do you have the courage and wisdom to do so? I guess we'll find out. So now that the government created this disaster and all of you allowed this to happen to our county, what are we going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? We have had our rights and freedoms stripped away for the past 19 months with no end in sight, for no good reason but for control, and you let it happen. You are not representing the people. Your constituents, Democrats and Republicans alike, are not in favor of a collapsed health care system or of their constitutional rights and freedoms being stripped away. I guess we'll see if any of the 29 of you have courage and wisdom to take a stand. You are the lawmakers of this county, so don't tell us that you have no way to change health policy or any other policies. Our unelected officials are not lawmakers, and neither is the governor. Thank you.
Our next three speakers are James Thompson, Sherry Stuhler, Lauren Del Vecchio.
come right up and get ready.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, legislators and citizens. Months ago, Lakaya Sinclair made allegations of sexual harassment against one of our legislators. Allegations that were sustained by the County Ethics Board. We're still waiting for a resolution to this dispute. So I want to ask some elemental questions. What does justice look like in our communities and in our legislature? Are all sexes and genders respected equally? In our patriarchal society, is it men who have most of the power, the social capital? If we are to change that to make it more fair, then men have to be on board with changing this dynamic. Because our true effectiveness comes from our unity. Our village, our beloved community, demands that. When someone harms another person, it harms the entire community. Justice first requires recognition that a harm has been done. Then we can all try to heal. But there's an unspoken culture of silence about sexual harassment because it's so common and we're so accustomed to it, like structural racism. Our lopsided system doesn't want to acknowledge this because it doesn't want to be exposed as lacking. There's a pressure to suppress speaking out. But to rectify this issue would be a blessing, a balm for all sexes, genders, and races. It would help us see what our true values are and where they need to be changed. Passing this over with minimal examination keeps our system just rolling along without snags, but forces us to live in a world where true change and true community cannot happen. This problem is way bigger than one county legislator. It's just easier to let this problem fade into the background. If that happens, the problem will never be resolved. It'll happen over and over. It's necessary to censure the offending legislator. Other legislators shouldn't be afraid to do this. No one's perfect, and no one person is defined by their worst deeds. However, we need to point out when someone is harming other people. We cannot have business as usual. The wrongdoer must publicly admit the wrong. He must take counseling or make other reparations in order to remain just in the legislature. This is necessary. Why? To stop compounding the harm to Lakaya, for one thing, as well as to ensure the credibility of the Monroe County Legislature as a representative body of the people. Until that is done, the whole county legislature is simply a part of the problem. Thank you.
So I learned from last time I have a very booming voice, so I'm going to stand back a little. I wrote this fabulous speech tonight, and then sitting here and listening to everybody come together tonight to stand up and fight for whatever it is they believe they're entitled to for their freedoms is truly amazing. So instead of going over the same points that some have already made as far as parents being called terrorists for going to board meetings, I'm going to remind you that I was here last month and I spoke upon the injustice, the unfairness, the abuse that's happening to our children in schools. So just like the nurses who were forced to walk off the job, who were fired, guess what? Your schools are next. They're already short-staffed. We can't get a sub now. So we're pushing rooms together that shouldn't be run together. The safety, I can't even tell you how many fights occur in the building because we can't cover what's going on in there. So now your staff's leaving the schools too because they're being forced. We are abused every day at work if we don't agree. Last year, all of us, law enforcement, health officials, hospital workers, school staff, we were wonderful. The counselors, everything. All of these services that we sit here and demand we need more of, what was the common theme tonight? They're all the ones that are up here complaining, saying we can't afford to pay our bills. We get treated horrifically at our jobs, and now we're being forced to do things that we do not believe, that go against every grain in us. When does someone stand up for us? It's great that you want the counselors out there. That's wonderful. I think they should go. Pay them to do it. It's great that you want us in school to do more. That's great. Let us do it the right way. Because I'll tell you what, us in the schools, we're the front line. We're the first defense. We're the ones calling CPS. We're the ones disclosed to. So kick us all out? What do the kids have? There's no chance anymore, guys. You're just destroying anybody's future. Somebody needs to stand up. It takes one. You have a whole room behind you here to stand up. It's time you stand up for the citizens of this county. Thank you.
My name is Lauren Delvecchio, and I am a caseworker in Child Protective Investigations. I'm here with my union siblings of the Federation of Social Workers. I started in Child Protective in October 2019. I was 22 years old and fresh out of college, and I was excited to begin working towards these amazing things called pensions that every adult was bragging to me about in my life. Fast forward to today, October 2021, I still oftentimes have to waitress or drive Uber, DoorDash, things like that to make ends meet. I have made many friends on this job, and few are still my coworkers. Unfortunately, the mindset has become get casework experience on your resume and move on. It's no secret that child protective caseworkers are overworked and underpaid, but when doing research in surrounding counties, I was shocked. To be brief, I'm just going to mention Erie County, which is our neighbor that have extremely similar demographics as our county and caseloads. Their caseworkers start at roughly $39,000 a year, and they pay 15% of their health insurance, whereas Monroe caseworkers start at roughly $39,000 and pay anywhere between 21 and 23%. It's no wonder that we can't entice and or retain caseworkers. The labor shortage in child protective is not like the labor shortages you are hearing about in service industry and retail. A labor shortage in child protective is directly impacting the safety of our most vulnerable population, children. The average caseworker in Monroe County lasts 2 to 3 years. This is not sustainable. We are unable to turn reports away and say, sorry, short-staffed. Our children need us to protect them. Otherwise, who will? Many of us, well, all of us love our job and take pride in the families we serve. However, we cannot continue to come to work with the expectation to set the community up for success when many of us are utilizing the exact services we provide for our families on top of worrying about our own financial security. Investing in a dedicated and committed Department of Human Services will be an investment in a stronger and safer community. We show up day in and day out and put in far more than what's considered a fair day's work. We deserve fair pay to go along with it. Thank you.
Our next three speakers are Sister Rita Lewis, David Booth, Christina Crispin.
First of all, I would like to thank Monroe County for doing such a good job of helping us at the House of Mercy to get our people vaccinated. You really did help me a great deal to try to get our folks the vaccine that they really wanted, and we can feel safer about COVID. My concern tonight, though, is very much the lack of shelter and housing for the homeless. There is a real problem here. There are fewer and fewer beds available. When we call DSS, they come up with all kinds of regulations as to why they cannot house this person on the phone. It's just not acceptable what is going on. And our people need to be adequately sheltered and housed. And it's your responsibility as leaders in Monroe County serving our people to provide this shelter. Now, we love doing it at the House of Mercy. We love our people, but we need more houses of mercy. We need more shelters. We need a hotel for the homeless. That's what we need. And we know that there's been talk about a hotel taking in the homeless, but we're being told that Monroe County is holding it up. That's what we're being told. So we need to have you as legislators and our county executive make it right for our people so that they have a safe place to be, especially as the cold weather approaches. It's not right that they're left outside. It's not right at all. We can do it. All you have to do is provide the resources, the place, and it can be done. So please work with us.
Mr. President, county legislators, I'm here today to talk about the Monroe County Settlement and Covenant of the de jure Assembly of Monroe County. Whereas we, the people of the territory known as Monroe County in New York, a free and independent nation state, hereby give notice that we have assembled and notice of our county settlement and covenant. Therefore, this shall serve as notice to all people of the world of our claim that we, the people of Monroe County, establish our natural rights and freedoms given to us by God. We hereby acknowledge, accept, and adopt the Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776, the Bill of Rights, 1791, and the Articles of Confederation, ratified March 1781, specifically calling attention to Article 2. Each state retains its sovereignty, freedom, and independence, and every power, jurisdiction, and right which is not by this Confederation expressly delegated to the United States in Congress assembled. These founding documents, including the New York State Constitution, provide the lawful basis for we the people. The de jure Assembly of Monroe County, our group, is the fourth arm of the government, with the authority to monitor Monroe County's public servants to ensure that they act on behalf of we, the people, remaining compliant to the Constitution and to their oaths. Thank you all for your oaths of office.
Good evening. My name is Christina Chrisman. I'm the current president of the Federation of Social Workers. The Federation of Social Workers represents over 700 employees of the Monroe County Department of Human Services in various departments such as CPS, Adult Protective, the Children's Detention Center, Child Support Enforcement, SNAP, Temporary Assistance, Medicaid, HEAP, Income Eligible Daycare, and we even have medical caseworkers at the Monroe Community Hospital. Our dedicated members work tirelessly to provide essential support to our community, and that was especially evident during the COVID-19 pandemic. We braved COVID outbreaks, long hours, and short staffing to ensure Monroe County residents were safe, fed, and housed. We will soon enter into contract negotiations. Many of you remember the struggle our members faced over the last decade fighting for fair wages and fair benefits. We are optimistic this negotiation process will be more equitable, but we are facing a serious staffing crisis immediately. As you heard tonight from FSW members, the department's vastly understaffed in all areas. We can blame it on the job market, but the job market is clearly in the favor of employees right now. We are losing coworkers daily to other agencies and even departments within Monroe County where they make more money. No one does this job solely for the money, but we need to make enough to support ourselves and our families. We will be submitting a request to reopen our negotiations as our current contract does not end until 2023. As we enter negotiations, we ask you to do the right thing and adequately compensate the employees of the Department of Human Services.
Our next three speakers are Sabine Adler, Mildred Bartlett, Crystal Lanier.
Well, my name is Crystal. I've been working at the House of Mercy since I was 21. I'm 45 years old. And for right now, we've been talking to the mayor, Malik Evans, and we want our people to be placed before October 15th. And that is only Friday. So we need more hotels. We need more participation from DSS, but DSS is sending them to places that when you get burnt out, you get emergency housing. We need help. Because we got children out here. We got parents out here. I just took some stuff today to a lady that said she was homeless and they placed her in emergency housing. Our system is broken. We need to fix it. And we need to fix it quickly because everybody got a job. Who said that tomorrow that y'all may not have a job? So you want to be out there homeless too? We all got to help everybody in Rochester. Rochester need to come up. If New York City can do it, we can also place other people's in hotels too, not just New York City. It's called Honda. We need help because people are dying every year and it's getting cold outside. Thank you.
To God be the glory, to the legislative and to men's and women's. I came up here to tell you that I'm standing up for the homeless, for the House of Mercy, Sister Grace Miller, Sister Rita Lewis, and CW. You're looking at a lady that tried to commit suicide 32 years ago. My son dropped dead at East High School. 10 months later, my husband. I lost it. But I want to say that I'm standing for the mental retardation, mental illness, and for homeless, and for people that don't know the knowledge, that don't have the strength, and don't know what to do. I found out that we have lawyers, teachers, school, different ones with all kinds of degrees, but they have lost hope. They have problems. They're not retarded, but they have mental illness. I stand here today. To God be the glory, to the grace of God. The House of Mercy, Sister Grace Miller, Sister Rita, and CW. You see a woman that tried to commit suicide 3 times, but through the House of Mercy, helping me, going to the mental illness place for 9 months. There's people out there that are homeless, have all kinds of degrees. There are people that are poor. They don't know which way to turn, and they'll die. We need a place. We need the Cadillac Hotel back. We need Mr. Kristen to help us with grace and mercy. And I also want to say to the people out here, sir, legislator, we need help. There's poor people standing there under the bridges, all kind of places, in mental illness places. They won't even take them in. Sister Grace, the House of Mercy, they taste the worst where nobody else don't. And here you see one today. If it was not for grace and mercy and the angels that came and took me, I would be dead. But today, with God's grace and mercy, I stand here today. And I say to you, please have mercy, have grace on the homeless, the poor. We need your help. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sabine, and I'm with the Rochester Homeless Union. You cannot live in Monroe County and not understand that we are in a state of emergency with homelessness in this county. Last winter, I followed our fallen leader, Patrick Braswell, who walked around every single day to help those who are homeless. We went to warming shelters. We went all around in December and January, and we found shelters were closed because of COVID-19 regulations. Hotels were not open to the poor, and there was nothing available for people. We saw more numbers of homelessness than we've ever seen before on the street in the winter during a pandemic with no help from the county. That is something that we cannot and will not tolerate this winter. They have already projected that this is going to be the worst winter we have seen, possibly ever in Rochester, New York. And we have over 800 people, and that is a statistic from 2019, and we all know that's only gotten larger, of people who are on the street, more people who are couch surfing, who are in need. We need hotels now. We need the empty buildings that already exist here to be turned into immediate and emergency shelter now, because we cannot have one more person die in the street when we can prevent it. That is unconscionable, it is immoral. And it is a joke that we're all sitting here pretending like we're doing a job when we have people on the street, basic human rights that are being violated every single day. And we are going to fight no matter what the county does. But we are asking you to join us now and to help us and to properly fund and make proper programs for the poor and the homeless. Because come January, when the eviction moratorium expires, there are 8,000 cases of evictions, and you are going to have so many more people on the street. Do we really want Monroe County to have the highest statistic of homeless people in the country because we're headed there? Thank you.
Our last speaker is Sean Jones.
I'm not apprised of the etiquette of this situation, but I am apprised of my situation at the House of Mercy. I walked the streets of Rochester 3 nights in the rain. I'm 70 years old. I had no business being out there because there was no shelters for us to go to. I had to walk all the way across Rochester to get to the House of Mercy so I could have a place to stay. And I'm sitting here looking at people that have the authority to make that difference, and you're just sitting here. We need you. We need you to step up to the plate and do something for us. We'll do something for you. We already are. Every day, we keep your streets clean. We don't make no mess. Some of us are out of control, but that's because of our mental illness. Everybody ain't straight. Everybody ain't like you. We can make decisions and go about doing things every day. We have people that are around us that can't even think for themselves. Do y'all understand what that means? You got a person that can't think, and you want to leave them in the street with nothing? Come on, man. I know you're better human beings than that. You gotta be. You can't be messed up like that because your family, somebody in all of your family is homeless, is looking for a place to eat, is looking for a place that he can lay his head every night. And we sit here like it ain't nothing. But it is, ladies and gentlemen. It is. And like she said in January, this shit gonna end and it's gonna be a whole lot of us in the street. What you gonna do?
This concludes the public forum.
This time we'll recess the October 12th, 2021 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature. We will convene the Rochester Pure Water District. Mr. Clerk, please note the attendance and read the first item on the agenda.
You have agenda item number 1, referral 21-0333. Authorizing contract with Schuler House and Electric for construction services for Rochester Pure Waters District's Frank E. Van Laer Water Resource Recovery Facility Electrical System Improvements Project.
Move it, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, right, seconded by legislator Delahanty. This is to adopt. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next, please.
You have agenda item number 2, referral 21-0335. Authorizing contract with Blue Heron Construction Company for construction services for Rochester Pure Waters District's Frank E. Van Laer Water Resource Recovery Facility Aeration System Improvements Project, Phase B.
Move it, Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Wright, seconded by legislator Delahanty. This is to adopt. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. We will now recess the Pure Waters Administration Board for the Rochester Pure Waters District. The October 12th, 2021 meeting of the legislature is reconvened. We will now proceed with consideration of local laws. Will the clerk please read the first item on the agenda?
Item number 1, referral 21-0296, providing that local law intro number 397 of 2021 entitled to establish the Food Delivery Fairness Act be lifted from the table.
Moved by legislator Barnhart, seconded by legislator Dondorfer. This is to lift from the table. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Next item.
Item number 2, referral 21-0296, providing that local law intro number 397 of 2021 entitled to establish the Food Delivery Fairness Act be adopted.
Move it.
Moved by legislator Barnhart, seconded by legislator Dondorfer. This is a motion to adopt. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Barnhart.
Go ahead, legislator.
Thank you. This bill, as you may know, would not allow third-party food delivery services to list restaurants on their platforms without express written authorization. Restaurants don't like being listed without their permission. It deprives them of control over a lot of different aspects of their business, including the quality of service, tips, the volume of orders. Some restaurants want to utilize their own delivery employees, and they don't want to offer delivery because perhaps their menu items aren't conducive to being transported. And I just wanted to tell you a story before we vote on this. About a month ago, I got a phone call from a city restaurant. They had a customer come in, and this customer said, they placed a takeout order, so the customer came in to pick up the food, and the customer said, I'm really sad you're out of dumplings tonight. And the owner of the restaurant said, we're not out of dumplings, what are you talking about? I said, well, I called, you're out of dumplings. So it turns out that for who knows how long, when people Googled this restaurant, a 585 number came up, but it wasn't to that restaurant. It was to the Grubhub call center. And so because they list the dumplings in Japanese on their restaurant, the person at the call center didn't know that they did have dumplings. So now they had to, for who knows how long and for how many orders, they had to pay a commission to Grubhub every time this happened for those takeout orders. So you can see how this is really unfair. And this happens to a lot of different restaurants who have to jump through tons and tons of hoops when they find out this is happening to them. Whether it's a Google website, whether it's on their platforms. So this is something that is very friendly to consumers and is also friendly to small businesses. The food service delivery apps have about 95% of the market for these kinds of services that you can do online. I do think we eventually need to address the issue of fees, but that is being litigated across the country right now, and we need to work on legislation that is better. and that more meets the needs of all the stakeholders involved. And we'll be watching to see what happens in those other cities. So thank you so much for your consideration of this proposal. This is pro-consumer and it's pro-business. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Mr. President,
Go ahead, Legislator Lamar.
I would like to explain my vote. Over the last, I would say 2 or 3 months, I've been receiving tons, maybe hundreds of emails from people who people who drive for DoorDash or Grubhub. They actually have this tag, Protect My Earnings, as a Monroe County basher. And I've never received any emails or any type of communication from any restaurants indicating that this was a problem. But I've been receiving emails from people who actually do the work, people who are actually earning an income from doing this delivery service. And because I haven't heard from any businesses and only people who will be impacted by this bill, I'm going to be voting no. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
President Carbone?
Yes.
Yes. I really appreciate what Legislator Lamar has to say. That's partly why we asked to table that legislation. I submitted 2 different bills. One was to cap the fees that that we got a bunch of emails about, the 4 emails about. That was tabled. This legislation is specific to the listing. I specifically broke it out because I figured this might come up. The listing legislation has nothing to do with the earnings of the drivers. It has nothing to do with capping the fees. This piece of legislation would only prohibit the food service delivery apps from listing businesses without their permission. And it actually does have the support of these companies because to them, it levels the playing field. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that okay, Legislator Lamar?
Oh, I appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I think we have to go to a roll call vote. Clerk?
Mr. Brew.
Yes.
Mr. Felder.
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Alcoff.
Yes.
Mr. Ansello.
Yes.
Ms. Barnhart.
Yes.
Mr. Barak.
Yes.
Mr. Baines.
Yes.
Ms. Boyce.
Yes.
Mr. Colby.
Yes.
Mr. Delahanty.
Yes.
Mrs. DeFlorio.
Yes.
Mr. Dondorf.
Yes.
Mr. Flagler Mitchell. Ms. Hasman.
Yes.
Mr. Hebert.
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Mr. Kiyofat-Lassie.
Yes.
Ms. Lamar.
No.
Mr. Mafucci.
Yes.
Mr. Marinetti.
Yes.
Mr. Morelli.
Yes.
Ms. Roman.
Yes.
Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Taylor.
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox.
Yes.
Ms. Wright.
Yes.
Mr. Udelson.
Yes.
President Carbone.
Yes.
27-1, local law passes.
We'll now proceed with consideration of motions, resolutions, and notices. Will the clerk read the next item on the agenda, please?
Item number 3, referral 21-0326, confirming appointment to Monroe County Soil and Water Board.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Wright, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Legislator Barra.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to explain my vote. I've been voting against this referral resolution simply because I consider it to be an improper resolution in the first place. I have nothing against Legislator Smith. I think that she, placed on the board, would do a fantastic job. I think the board would benefit from her being there. But the problem is that she is filling what has traditionally been for the past 30, 40 years. I will go back however far it's been, but a long time. What has been consistently the minority seat on that board. I myself have served on that board for about 8 years. And I can tell you that the board works hard and that the Soil and Water Conservation District staff works hard and they do a lot of good work. They actually bring in a lot of money through grants and other things that are benefit to the environment, benefit to our farmers, and frankly, very positive stuff. And the problem is that right now, as explained to me by, I hope you don't mind, majority leader group, is that, they are missing, they've been missing the minority representative for a long time. I would guesstimate about a year and a half. I think it's approximately correct. And it has not been filled. And I'm not gonna go into the whys and wherefores and why it hasn't been filled. I think there's reasons for that, but it doesn't matter. But then what does matter is that that has been our seat on this side of the aisle to fill. We have not done so, but it's been ours. It's our responsibility, it's not the responsibility of the majority then to say, well, we're gonna take it and put one of our own members in, however well qualified. I cannot support that. I don't decry, and I want to malign anybody about that. I don't mean it that way. But it's breaking a norm, and we've been breaking a lot of norms here over the past year and a half. And I think there's a lot of unintended consequences for that. And I'm not going to be supporting this particular appointment for that reason. I just want to explain that before voting. It should be clear that it has absolutely is not meant to speak ill of anybody. That's not the point.
Thank you, Legislator. Thank you very much. Legislator Brew.
Yes, Mr. President. Wait for the mic. Okay. I'd like to explain my vote as well. And yes, Legislator Baroth and myself, we met over a cup of coffee about this a week ago, actually, a week ago tonight. And, I understand his concern. There is no restriction in this in doing it from a single party. But, my argument was that, it's been since March 9th, since I have been in receipt, and the Democratic side of the aisle, the leadership had been in receipt of Legislator Udelson's withdrawal, for good reasons, understandably so, because of the work commitments that he has, and he would be unable to attend the monthly meetings that are typically 3 to 4 hours on the third Monday of the month between 8 a.m. and 11:30. So, as a sitting board member myself, I'd also, I witnessed the many occasions. There was one occasion where we just did not have a quorum, and we could not conduct business. And this has gone on for a year and a half. So I guess my feeling is that, the tradition was pretty much in place, and we have been waiting for a name ever since the, I'm not going to say the resignation of Legislator Udelson, but the opting out on his part because of the work conflict. So seeing that there was no movement on that, and what the current status of a functioning board needed to be at the district, we decided to go with a Republican appointment. And I also sent a note to Legislator Baroth. I don't see this as a permanent path forward. I see this as a remedy of a problem that was currently before us right now, in the inability of the Democratic caucus to supply a person, and that in the future that there may be an opportunity to once again get back to representation from the Democratic side. So I will be voting to support the appointment of Jackie Smith to the Monroe County Soil and Water Conservation Board. Thank you.
Legislator Barra.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate what my colleagues just stated. It is problematic that this position has not been filled for about a year and a half. I recognize that. But this is a board that has functioned very well and has dealt with management that has been very well established, has been in place for 8 to 10 years, longer, very long time, and has done good work and has provided excellent support for the board. In other words, functions well. I know for a fact that, when board meetings occur, it's like clockwork. So much so that, people are relaxing, have a good time. They know it's going to come to a good resolution. They have questions, they're answered, there's clear-cut answers. It's a good board and a good organization. Unlike that, which is in place at the Monroe County Sports Center Authority, which is another body where we send representatives to. That's just the Iceplex on Brighton Henry Line Road. That one is another one I served on for the past 8, 9 years. And on that one, there's an open seat. It's been open for about 5.5 to 6 years when Legislator Quattro left the legislature. It never was replaced by the Republican majority. And I know for a fact the Republican majority, or the president's office, one of the two, or the president's office, received letters from that board requesting Republican representatives to show up. And this is a board that works its tail off because we've dealt with lawsuits, fiscal improbabilities, audits that were totally unsatisfactory, a managing partner that took advantage of the board's lack of financial information because we were, treated like a mushroom, no light, treated a lot of manure, to his own personal benefit. It's a complicated situation where it's a combination of a nonprofit, us, and a private enterprise trying to make money. The fiscal realities behind that are wicked. And we've been short a Republican representative for over 5.5 years after requesting it at least twice. Once we came so close to declaring bankruptcy, it was a 1 vote difference. We would have lost that asset. It's turned around now. Over the past couple of years, it's performed much better. And we've done it without a full board complement. I hope that this desire on the part of the majority to resolve upon a quorum for an extremely well-functioning board, of which I've served on. It flies on cruise control most of the time. The biggest problem is a farmer complaining about having to fill out a form that they don't want to fill out. I'm exaggerating. Whereas on this board, we got people stealing money. We got people making profits on fiscal interests I don't fully understand. We could use some help. So if you're going to go and steal a seat that frankly is ours, at least fill your own. If you haven't done it yet. And so I'm not going to call names. I didn't want to bring this up. But I was ready to. Before complaining about our inability to fill a seat, you should check how many seats you don't have filled. I'm still going to vote against this. I still have great respect for legislature. I'm sure that when she's appointed, she'll do a great job. Thank you.
Legislator Brew.
Yes, if I could address some of the legislators brought off points. I take exception to the, to the somewhat dumbing down of the board's appointment. It's a little bit more involved in processing complaints of resident farmers within Monroe County. There is there's a number of official business that comes up for the board, and as I mentioned before, the board meets from 3 to 4 hours once a month. I find that somewhat offensive to the good work the Soil District does, as well as to the board members who sit on the board. But the bottom line is that there was an opportunity for 1.5 years for the Democratic side of the aisle to provide a name, and they did not. As I stated before, there were constant challenges of the administrator over at the Soil and Water Conservation District, making sure that everybody could attend, because if one missed, we could not have a quorum. So that's how close. I'm not sure about the ice complex and their quorum requirements over there. If they're close to the edge, I don't know. But what I do know, the Soil and Water Conservation District is, and that we needed to add this person as soon as possible. 1.5 years is a little bit too long to wait. Thank you.
Let's give Legislator Wilcox a chance. What do you say, Legislator Wilcox?
I say yes. Thank you, President Carmona. Through you, President Carmona, I think the Legislator Brew had said that they had waited for some time, for 1.5 years, for a recommendation from the Democratic side of the aisle. Traditionally, those appointments are made by the minority on the Democratic side of the aisle. Did you not get a recommendation from the minority leader on this appointment?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
No, I don't think so.
And for point of clarification, who should that recommendation come from, in your opinion?
Legislator Felder.
Okay, thank you.
I think Legislator Baroff was next. Okay, let's let Legislator Felder respond.
No one wanted. No one wanted it. Can't force somebody to do it. No one wanted it. And then, based on the little typical cool, whatever, they don't recognize it, somebody asked. And so, I've been fighting. Plain and simple. That's that.
Legislator Wilcox.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm a little surprised by the assertion that nobody wanted it, but I'm not aware of any attempts to communicate with the rest of the caucus regarding that particular position. I'm telling you, this has not been mentioned to us. It has not been brought to our attention. And like I said, I find that particular excuse.
The microphone's on.
I don't
Let's
think
let
so.
Legislator Wilcox finish, please, Legislator Feldman.
No, I'm not sure if this one is, to be honest with you. But I will say this, Mr. President, I just take exception to that particular excuse given. I think there are plenty of folks that if they've been asked by our minority leader, that they would have. Thank you.
Legislator Felder.
I find it, frankly, this is the last comment I'll make this. I find it frankly baffled that someone claims not to recognize me as a leader. It's now, I'm trying to put something up on it. But, that's that. We can move on and keep talking. I don't care.
Legislator Burrow.
Well, that's what happens with breaking the norms. So, I just want to respond to, Legislator Brewer and say, yes, indeed, form is an issue. It has been an issue. I'd appreciate it if, if we're going to complain about the 1.5 year wait, which I get, that's not good. I'll say 5.5 year long wait is worse. Please resolve that, sir.
Wilcox?
Yeah. President Carbo, I just want to reiterate what you said, that frankly, that the recommendation should have come from our minority leader, Legislator Feldman. Thank you.
Legislator Baines.
Through you, Mr. President. Could legislators with experience with the makers of the motion explain the duration of the appointments or the succession? Just for the education of everyone, how long is the term? And then are the positions cycled? Or, how long are they in office, so to speak? Because Legislator Brewer did mention that this might be, for instance, a temporary situation to solve a short-term problem. Thank you, sir.
The term is 3 years. Legislator Burrow.
Starting when?
I suppose starting from when they're appointed.
So okay.
Legislator Brewer.
Yeah, Mr. President, I think the 3-year term would apply to those non-legislative members. If you're a legislator and you are a board member over there, I believe that term coincides with your term in office, and that the 3-year terms would apply to the non-elected board members. I believe I'm correct in that.
Any other discussion? I'm sure we're going to go to a roll call
Mr. Monroe.
Yes.
Mr. Felder.
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Alcoffer.
Yes.
Mr. Ansella.
Yeah.
Ms. Barnhart.
No.
Mr. Barak.
No.
Mr. Baines.
No.
Ms. Boyce.
Yes.
Mr. Colby.
Yeah.
Mr. Delahany.
Yes.
Mrs. DeFlorio.
Yes.
Mr. Gondorfer.
Yes.
Mr. Flagler Mitchell.
Yes.
Ms. Hasman.
No.
Mr. Hebert.
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Mr. Keith Lassie.
Yes.
Ms. Lamar.
Yes.
Mr. Mafucci.
No.
Mr. Marinetti.
Yes.
Mr. Morelli.
No.
Ms. Roman.
No.
Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Taylor.
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox.
No.
Ms. White.
Yes.
Mr. Udelson.
No.
President Carbone.
Yes.
20-9, resolution passes.
Next.
Item number 4, referral 21-0327, authorizing intermunicipal agreement with Spencerport Fire District for purchase of a Lucas automated chest compression device.
Move it, Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Ansello, seconded by legislator Boyce and Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Roll call vote.
Mr. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Felder?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Alcoff?
Yes.
Mr. Ansello?
Yes.
Ms. Barnhart?
No.
Mr. Brough?
No.
Mr. Baines?
No.
Ms. Boyce?
Yes.
Mr. Colby?
Yes.
Mr. Delahanty?
Yes.
Mrs. DeFlorio?
Yes.
Mr. Dondorfer?
Yes.
Mr. Flager Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Hasman?
No.
Mr. Hebert?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Kiyofat-Lassi?
Yes.
Ms. Lamar?
Yes.
Mr. Mafucci?
No.
Mr. Marinetti?
Yes.
Mr. Morelli?
No.
Ms. Roman?
No.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox?
No.
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Udelson?
No.
President Carbone?
Yes.
19-10, resolution passes.
Item 5.
Item number 5, referral 21-0328, authorizing funding for position at Cornell Cooperative Extension of Monroe County to expand existing Cornell Cooperative Extension nutrition program and strengthen Cornell Cooperative Extension public health outreach.
Move it, Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Taylor, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Legislator.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm honored to have signed this referral. The Cornell Cooperative Education Department provides amazing services to our county by helping our residents through outreach programs that address food security, nutrition disparities, and the youth and family outreach. This program is currently run by 4 full-time SNAP educators who work in neighborhoods with some of the highest concentrations of poverty in our county. I'm happy to see that the Cornell Cooperative Education Department is beginning to receive assistance in their efforts to address a significant need throughout our entire community. This referral would allow us to expand this program and close the sizable gap in Monroe County in order to reach more residents who are in need of this type of service. I look forward to watching the continuing progress of the Cornell Cooperative Education Department. Outreach of this magnitude will aid many areas of the county, including my rural district, to help strengthen areas of public health throughout our entire community. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 6, referral 21-0329, authorizing allocation of emergency grant funding to Gates Volunteer Ambulance Service to reimburse expenditures incurred during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Vote, Mr. President.
Second by legislator Boyce, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this?
Through you, Mr. President.
Go ahead, legislator Hill.
I am honored we have signed this referral. The Gates Volunteer Ambulance Service provides life-saving services to the entire town of Gates, surrounding municipalities, and portions of the city of Rochester when necessary. COVID-19 has placed unthinkable stress upon all public safety and emergency medical services across the county, and the Gates Volunteer Ambulance is no different. During the most difficult days of the pandemic, Gates Volunteer Ambulance was able to adequately and rapidly respond to the worsening public health crisis at the expense of equipment and risk of their own well-being. They incurred a total of $80,380.23 in cost in order to save lives and maintain their vital service for our community when they were most needed. These costs included personal protective equipment, medical equipment for airway management that could not be reused, and disinfectant to clean the equipment in vehicles and buildings. Additional costs included some technology, hardware, and software in order to effectively address the pandemic in all hours of the day and night. I am grateful for the support of the Gates Volunteer Ambulance has received, and this reimbursement will ensure that they may continue to save lives and address the health challenges that are present in this pandemic. My hope is that other emergency medical services across the county will follow the example that Gates Volunteer Ambulance has provided after being left out of financial reimbursement under the CARES Act of funding. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, legislator. Any further discussion? Legislator Morelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the administration, has the administration had an opportunity to see the cost breakdowns that were discussed back at our committee meetings?
Through the president, yes, we have.
And through you, Mr. President, to the administration, does the administration feel that these costs were incurred due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and therefore the reimbursement is therefore eligible under the American Rescue Plan?
Through the president, we don't have adequate documentation that it satisfies the eligibility requirements of the American Rescue Plan. Further, the American Rescue Plan covers expenditures on or after March 3rd of 2021. The vast majority of these expenses, almost all of them, were incurred before that date.
So through you, Mr. President, to the administration, is it the administration's opinion then that the town of Gates is responsible for these costs?
Mr. President, that is a reasonable assumption. The town of Gates actually raises taxes and has a contract with the agency, Gates Volunteer Ambulance, to levy taxes and reimburse them for their contract.
Through you, Mr. President, to explain my vote, I will be voting in the negative, as this is clearly something that Gates Ambulance needs to pay for themselves. As Mr. Franklin just identified, they do have the ability to, as a taxing district, something that's we in Arundecoy, our Arundecoy ambulance is not a taxing district, therefore cannot raise taxes. But it sounds like the Gates ambulance does have that ability. Sounds like they're just looking for an alternative to pay for bills that they incurred. And again, based on the information from the administration, sounds like these costs were incurred prior to when the American Rescue Plan would actually have been allowed to pay for them. So for those reasons, I don't think it is fair for all of the residents of Monroe County to be paying the bills of the Gates ambulance, especially when they have the ability to raise the money they need to pay these bills. So therefore, I will give them. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. President, Legislator Colby.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, just for clarification, the Gates Volunteer Ambulance Corps does not have the ability to raise taxes. They're not part of the town of Gates. They actually cover Ogden, also. The two volunteer organizations merge. They are not a taxing. They do have no way of levying taxes at this time. They are looking at it, but right now they are not a taxing, have no ability to tax through either the town of Ogden, through the town of Gates, or on their own. So they do not have the ability to raise taxes to pay any expenses. Thank you, Mr. President.
Legislator DeFlorio.
Yes, through the president to the administration, just for clarity, did you say that the expenses submitted were after March 3rd of 2020 or March 3rd of 2021?
Through the president, for eligibility under the American Rescue Plan, they need to be after March of 2021.
And the dates on the expenses were what? For the administration or through the president?
Through the president, the records we have indicate expenses from most of 2020 through July of 2021, but only 2 of the entries totaling a little over $2,000 post date March of 2021.
Legislator Baines.
Thank you, Mr. President. If the funds to pay for these expenditures in the Gates ambulance are not coming from the American Rescue Act through to the administration, from where will they come?
Mr. President, they would come from Monroe County's property tax.
Legislator Felder?
Mr.
Oh, wait a
President, thank you. I just-
Legislator Baines is done.
I'll just explain my vote. I have to vote no for that reason. Thank you.
Okay. Legislator Felder.
Just want to clarification from the administration. It's the administration. Is it that only 2 of the entries post-date the March 2021 cutoff?
That's the way I understood it, just 2 entries. 2 entries are after the.
And those 2 total about 2,000 now?
Yes. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. President, yes, that's correct.
So we could pull those 2 out and be in compliance with the administration?
I think those are the 2 that are in, correct?
2, that's what I'm trying to figure out. 2, what's that? He said post-date. He said post-date. He didn't say.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Through you, Mr. President, or to you, your understanding is correct. Those would be the only 2 entries that are chronologically eligible for the American Rescue Plan funding.
Legislator Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a request for clarification from the administration. If funds are eligible for the American Rescue Plan, if the expenses are determined to be during the correct time period, do those need to come to the legislature for approval, or by the act itself are municipalities that are ambulance corps eligible for funds?
Did you hear him? I don't think his mic is on. Did you hear? Oh, it's the mask.
Thank you. I'll repeat it. So my question to the administration for clarification: if expenses are identified as being during the correct time period for the American Rescue Plan, do those approved expenses or eligible expenses need to come to the legislature for approval, or by the nature of the act itself, can municipalities or ambulance corps apply for reimbursement?
Mr. President, if the expenses incurred are in the eligible time period and they are eligible expenses in themselves under the American Rescue Plan, approval for Monroe County to pay them would require legislative approval. I would assume, Mr. President, that legislative approval would be this referral.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Legislator?
So I think that the intent of this particular referral is, though I believe the intent of this particular referral is to benefit the Gates Volunteer Ambulance Service, it sounds like this conversation is premature, or the information that was provided wasn't looked at well enough. Because I think what we are all hearing now is that there are only 2 expenses, the total of $2,000 that could actually receive this funding. So I would like to motion this. I would love to put a motion to table this particular referral.
A motion to table in a second. Legislator Brew?
I'd like to sec.
Pardon?
I'm not debating.
He wasn't debating.
No, I'd like to second that motion to table.
I wouldn't like to, flush this entirely. I'd like to table it and find a way if there is a means out there to fund the ambulance service. We heard from someone tonight. The EMS services throughout the county, throughout our general area here are under stress and, in need of some help. So I certainly would, and again, I also recognize that we can't put the county in harm's way of asking them to provide funds that are not legally approved to do so under the law. So I think in the interest of trying to salvage something out of this, I also vote to table this.
Motion to table, seconded by legislator Morelli and seconded by legislator Brew. Do we need to go to roll call vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Tabled. Number 7.
Item number 7, referral 21-0331, confirming appointments to Criminal Justice Council.
Move it, Mr. President. Second.
Moved by legislator Boyd, seconded by legislator Dondorfer. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Legislator Brew?
Yes, Mike, please. Mr. President, I'd like to, it's sort of a two-part motion here. I'd like to move items 8 through 36 as one item with the exception of the following. Items 29, 30, 31, 32, and 35. And I'd also like to call a 5-minute recess, realizing this is going to take a unanimous vote to approve combining these items. Vince seconded.
Yeah.
I'd also like to call a 5-minute recess to give my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to review the items and so that there may be a
Okay, let's take the
possibility.
recess and then we'll come back.
Mr. President, can we just have a listing again of what items?
Yes.
The majority leader would like to exclude, just the items you would like to exclude, Mr. Majority Leader.
Yes, it would be items 29, 30, 31, 32, and 35.
I think those are the ones you want, those are the ones you want to include. Is that what you want,
Yes.
legislator?
Those are, I'm sorry, for clarification, those are the ones that would not be part of the motion for the ones.
Correct.
Those 5 items would be separate of the single vote.
And legislator Morelli, item 35 was already voted on. That was the in memoriam. So it's
It's
just.
So it's items 29,
Yeah.
30, 31, and 32 to be voted on separately.
Correct.
Thank you.
Another point of order, it doesn't, item 36 need to be included as well, as a matter of urgency. Item 36 should be excluded as well, as a matter of urgency.
Matter of urgency.
It has to be separate.
It doesn't have to be.
Why don't we take the 5-minute recess, you discuss it, and then we'll come back with the exact ones and we can discuss it and vote on it. How does that? 5-minute recess. Legislature, Legislator Brew, you got the floor.
Test 1, 2. Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. After conferring with the other side of the aisle, there are some minor revisions. So I would move to move the remaining items on the agenda as one, with the exceptions of items number 11, 12, 29, 30, 31, 32, and 36.
Second. Any discussion? Second, Felder. Any discussion? And Roman, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries, so we'll go directly to number 11. Mr. Clerk.
Item number 11, referral 21-0337, amending resolution 224 of 2019 to accept additional funding from New York State Office of Victim Services for Victim and Witness Assistance Grant Program for District Attorney's Office.
Move it, Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Boyd, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this?
Mr. President,
Legislator Lamar.
through you to the administration, how many victims have been serviced through the Victims and Witness Assistance Program in 2020?
Through the chair, Dawn Staub, Chief Administrator, District Attorney's Office. Could the legislator please repeat the question? I couldn't hear it over the air conditioning in the back room.
Sure. How many victims have been serviced through the Victims and Witness Assistance Program in 2020?
Through the president, through calendar year 2020, victims receiving service, that, of course, this was at the height of COVID when the courts were closed. Victims receiving services, 604. Witnesses receiving services, 361. Points of contact total, 9,660.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. President, to the administration, how many of them were African American?
Through the president, I don't have that statistic in front of me. I would have to get back to you with that.
Please do. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item carries. I think we're gonna go to number 12 now.
Item number 12, referral 21-0338, amending resolution 225 of 2019 to accept additional funding from New York State Office of Victim Services for the Sheriff's Victim Assistance Program.
Move it, Mr.
Moved by
President.
legislator Boyd, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this? Legislator Lamar.
Through you, Mr. President, to the administration, same question. How many victims were serviced through the Sheriff's Victim Assistance Program?
Through the president, Paul Simonelli from the Sheriff's Office, approximately 660 individuals.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. President, to the administration, how many of them were African American?
Let me correct that number, approximately 832 total. Of that, it appears that 62 were Black or African American.
Through you, Mr. President, to the administration, how many were Latino?
Through the president, 21.
Through you, Mr. President, to the administration, how many of them were white?
Through the president, 534. Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. Thank you for your answer, Mr. Simonelli. I would be remiss if I didn't express how disappointing those numbers are, especially considering the violence, the number of people of color who are violated or who have been victims of violence. For the last 2.5 years, I believe that I've been saying the same exact thing. And those numbers prove that we are not doing anything about it. We made an obligation, or we made a commitment to our constituents that we would move this county forward and it wouldn't be business as usual. And it seems that we are still doing the same thing that was done 10 years ago. We have to do a better job at servicing our most vulnerable, the most vulnerable population. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item is 29.
Item number 29, referral 21-0355, authorizing intermunicipal agreement with municipalities for Rochester, Monroe County Youth Bureau programs in 2021.
Move it, Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Ansello, seconded by legislators Taylor and Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this? Legislator Boyce.
Through the president, to Youth Bureau Director here tonight. Thank you. I just have a few questions through the president. Can you tell me the last time the youth advisory board was pulled together to meet?
Through the president, Brent Whitfield, Executive Director of the Rochester Monroe County Youth Bureau. I believe the last time the Youth Bureau met may have been in March or April of this year.
I'm sorry?
March or April?
March or April of this year.
March or April of this year.
March or April 2021. Okay. So through the president, who is the chairman of the board?
Through the president, offhand, I do not remember the name of the chairman of the board. I do apologize.
Okay. So through investigation and through asking questions to the president, I believe that the name in our directory, which I believe our staff gathered through calling your bureau, that Wendy Mervis is the chair of the board. Is that correct or not?
Through the president, yes, that is correct.
Okay. Through the president, we're not trying to, but I'm very, very concerned. Had my staff call your office, tried to set up a meeting. Ms. Mervis hasn't been contacted by anybody, whether it be yourself or anybody in the administration, since 2020. The youth board has not been put together. I double checked just as late as tonight to double check that I'm not incorrect. But I'm going to tell you what I have concerns about is that we're asking for funding, and I have nothing against Youth Bureau spending money for youth in our community. I'm all about it. That's very important to me. What I do have a problem is the youth board was not consulted with regards to this funding. And under further investigation, just to confirm, well, I've looked at the website, hasn't been updated since 2019, which is concerning. So I had to go to another county. And the county of Jefferson County, of Jefferson, New York. The members of the Jefferson County Youth Advisory Board are appointed by the chairman of the Board of Legislature, which I know to be true, or the county executive on this basis, to advise the legislators on youth issues and make recommendations as to allocations of the state aid for youth programs for the New York State Office of Children and Family Services. So I'm not sure if this funding was done, in a proper manner, and I just wanted to verify that. Thank you.
Legislator Meyer?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the administration, what is the role of the Youth Bureau or Youth Board?
Through the president, could you please repeat that?
What is the role, you said, of the Youth Board? The function?
Through the president, the function of the youth board is to, pardon me, the function of the youth board is to discuss programming within the community and to discuss what are the needs.
Thank you. One more question, Mr. President, for you to the administration. How will the funds, the $184,000 be allocated?
Through the president, the funding is allocated to the agency, this is for our counties, for our municipalities. These fundings go towards the rec centers within 15 municipalities.
Thank you.
Be through this?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yes.
Legislator?
Through the president, I'm going to ask at this time that we table this referral. I just want to make sure that if we're going to allocate the funding, if there's an advisory board that's been put in place, that they have some say as to how these monies are being allocated, which is their role.
Do you have a second? Anybody want to second that? Second by Legislator DeFlorio. We need to go to roll call vote to table this. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, let's go to roll call vote.
Mr. Brew,
Yes.
Mr. Feldman,
Yes.
Mr. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Alcoff,
Yes.
Mr. Ansello,
Yes.
Ms. Barnhart,
No.
Mr. Baral,
Yes.
Mr. Baines,
Yes.
Ms. Boyce,
Yes.
Mr. Colby,
Yes.
Mr. Delahanty,
Yes.
Mrs. DeFlorio,
Yes.
Mr. Gondorfer,
Yes.
Mr. Flagler Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Haslam,
No.
Mr. Hebert,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mr. Kufenlass.
No.
Sorry? No. Ms. Lamar,
Yes.
Mr. Mafucci,
No.
Mr. Marinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Morelli,
No.
Ms. Roman,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Taylor,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
No.
Ms. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Udelson.
No.
President Carbone.
Yes.
22-7, motion to table passes.
Number 30.
Item number 30, referral 21-0356, authorizing contracts with not-for-profit agencies for Rochester and Monroe County Youth Bureau programs in 2021.
Moved by Legislator Taylor, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this? Legislator Boyce.
Through the president, again, I'm going to ask that this be tabled on the same grounds that I asked for before. I just want to make sure that, I'm not trying to embarrass anybody here, I just want to make sure that our plans are being followed and that
or CFS has been, fully apprised, but more importantly, the board is taking part in deciding where these funds are going. Thank you, Mr. President.
Second by legislator DeFlorio, roll call vote.
Mr. President, can I explain my vote, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll also be voting to table, and again, this is not a direct criticism of the director, but on my way here tonight, I received a phone call from a well-known organization within the county that the county supports, that they have been waiting for over 2 weeks for a return phone call that has to do with a very important event that they will be hosting next October.
Point of order, Mr. President. While you may claim this is not debating, this is a non-debatable motion. And when you're providing information such as that is essentially debating. This is yes or no.
I'm explaining, excuse me, Mr.
There's no
President.
explanation of explaining one's vote either, but I'm not going to explain my vote.
Let's just go to a roll call vote. I agree with the legislator. You're coming up with too much stuff. A roll call vote.
Yes.
Mr. Brew.
Yes.
Mr. Felder.
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Alcoff.
Yes.
Mr. Ansella.
Yes.
Ms. Barnhart.
No.
Mr. Baroff.
Yes.
Mr. Baines.
Yes.
Ms. Boyce.
Yes.
Mr. Colby.
Yes.
Mr. Delahanty.
Yes.
Mrs. DeFlorio.
Yes.
Mr. Gondorfer. Mr. Flegler Mitchell.
Yeah.
Ms. Hasman.
No.
Mr. Hebert.
Yeah.
Mr. Keller. Mr. Keefe-Massa.
No.
Ms. Lamar.
Yes.
Mr. Mafucci.
No.
Mr. Marinetti.
Yes.
Mr. Morelli.
No.
Ms. Roman.
Yes.
Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Daly.
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox.
No.
Ms. Wright.
Yes.
Mr. Udelson.
Yes.
President Carbone.
Yes.
23-6, motion to table passes.
31.
Item number 31, referral 21-0357, authorization to enter into settlement and release of claims agreement with Excellus Health Plan, DBA Excellus Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Move it, Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, second by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Number 36.
Number 32.
32. See, even I make mistakes.
Item number 32, referral 21-0358, authorizing increase to contract with Greater Rochester Visitors Association to provide management, planning, and production of Monroe County Bicentennial Celebration and authorizing interdepartmental appropriation transfer.
Move it, Mr.
Moved
President.
by legislator Delahanty, second by legislator Alcoffer. Is there any discussion on this? Legislator Baroff.
Oh, my bad. One more. Sorry.
See, you make mistakes too.
I am imperfect.
It's just their voice.
I like it. We all can make mistakes. We're all humans, Through the president, in committee, I asked where the funding was coming. And I guess I just have concern, I think it's more, let's put it this way, it's optics. That this funding is coming out of the Department of Human Services. Now, as I sat here tonight and listened, we've got people that are really concerned about some human services issues. So I was hoping that we would come back tonight and we would find another place we could find this. It's a small amount of money. I'm not gonna fight over that. But just if we could come out of another fund, the optics would be great. I have nothing against celebrating Monroe County's bicentennial, but that's where I'm coming from. Thank you.
You want to address that or just go to a vote? I see you talking over there.
I I just was hoping that the administration could come back and maybe look at another fund, so through the president, has that been done?
Through you, Mr. President, I think as we went over this through committees, it was Director Franklin's opinion that out of the accounts that we have direct control over, this was the one that made the most sense and was the most appropriate for it to come from. And again, it's his job and his responsibility to find out there's a cost center there that was not realizing the expenses that we anticipated when the budget was put together. And that was his professional opinion that out of the accounts that we had control over, that made the most sense. But having said that, if the legislature would like to do something out of the contingency fund, we would support that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We have one opposed, legislator Boyce. Now we go to 36, I believe.
Item number 36, referral 21-0391, authorizing acceptance of the local government records management improvement fund grant.
Go ahead.
From New York State Archives for Records Management and Digitization Project.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Legislator Colby.
Yeah, through you, Mr. President, why is this a matter of urgency?
There we go. Through the president, this was a grant that we had applied for in the county clerk's office back in March of 2020. We received notification of the award in June. However, we've been waiting on the State Department of Education and State Archives to provide us the proper documentation so we can make sure the project is done in accordance to the timeline that's set down by the actual State Archives. We're supposed to have the work concluded within 12 months, which actually would be June of 2021. The work has not started because the money has not been accepted, because we had to wait until we had the proper documentation, which is why we submitted it to the president of the legislature to be considered as a matter of urgency.
Go ahead, legislator.
Thank you. To follow up on that, you've been having short staffing issues in all our departments. How are you going to get this done in a timely fashion if you have to have it done in June, which is less than 12 months?
Through the president, 100% of this grant is going to the vendor. This 100%, so all $74,000+ of this grant goes towards the vendor of the project, which is doing the actual digitizing of our records, which is going to be 2,105 rolls of microfilm. The staff work that we have, we are working into our existing apparatus.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. There being no unfinished business, legislator Brew.
Yes, Mr. President, this honorable body stands adjourned. Our next legislative meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, November 9th, 2021 at 6 p.m.